So, welcome to the podcast, Dr. Taylor. I'm so excited to have you on today.
Thank you. I am happy to be with you, Michelle.
So before we get started, first of all, I find your story so fascinating. It's just amazing about how consciousness, how you actually perceived consciousness in a different way. And you knew about neurology beforehand. So, can you share your story?
Sure. So I grew up to study the brain because I have a brother who's only 18 months older than me who would eventually be diagnosed with schizophrenia.
Mm-hmm.
And as a child, I knew that he was different from me in the way he interpreted external circumstances and reality, but that's all I knew. And as children, of course, we don't know that there could be a problem with the brain. All we know is this is my playmate, and his interpretation is different from mine. So I became very interested in the brain and trying to understand, how does our brain create our perception of reality? That's what I was pondering at age 10. So, I grew up to be an interesting character. So I grew up to study the brain, and I was teaching and performing research at Harvard in trying to understand the biology. What are the biological differences between the brains of individuals who would exhibit the symptoms of schizophrenia, bipolar, panic, anxiety versus a normal brain that doesn't have those circuits? And so I was doing that kind of research, and then I woke up one day and I had a major hemorrhage in the left half of my brain. And so inside of the course of 4 hours, I could not walk, talk, read, write, or recall any of my life. But even though my left brain went offline, my right brain became untethered by the inhibition from that left brain. And so I was still conscious. I was still present. I was still alive. I was still aware, but I had zero relationship with the external world because that's what we use the left brain for. So it took 8 years for me to, 3 weeks after the hemorrhage, I had surgery and they removed this blood clot that was the size of a golf ball. And they said, go recover. We have no idea how much you'll get back. But I believed in the ability of the brain to recover through the eyes of a neuroscientist. I love my cells. I love my brain. I think cellularly. So when I think about sound, I automatically have a visual of the auditory nervous system. So I understand. That's how I thought before. And I still thought that way because that's what's going on in the right brain. So it took 8 years to completely recover. And then I wrote my memoir, My Stroke of Insight, and gave a TED Talk. And it was the first TED Talk to ever go viral. So boom, Ted and I went out into the world instantaneously. And it's been a wild ride. But over the last few years after that, I had at least 300,000 people contact me and say, at the end of my TED Talk, I said, we have the power to choose moment by moment who and how we want to be in the world. And all these people wrote to me and said, how do I do that? How do I get out of my left brain and find this deep, peaceful euphoria of my right brain? How do I do that? And I thought, it's easy for me because I had a hemorrhage and it whacked me out of the this into the that. But how do I go back to the this and now help other people figure out how do you go from here to there, instead of me going from there to here? So it took me a decade to really figure that out. And now I have figured that out. So now I'm sharing that information, and my whole soul loves helping people figure out who's who inside of themselves so that they know their own choices, so that they can purposefully shift how they're being in any moment, and to know that we have more power over what's going on inside of our brain than we've ever been taught.
It's so amazing. And one of the things that I remember about you or your story is when you had mentioned that you went to the hospital, and even though you didn't recognize your mom, you felt her energy and you felt the energy of the nurses. You could sense the intention of a
Correct.
person. I found that so remarkable because I think we rely so much or identify so much with our external reality and names and identifications and information.
Yes.
That we forget that we can actually tune in with a different part of us. Yes. To really understand the essence of reality also in a different way.
Exactly. So the way I think about it is, every ability we have is because we have cells that are performing that function. So we can wiggle our fingers and our toes and move our body because we have cells designed to do that with our muscles. We can speak language because there's a group of cells in our left brain that does that. We know where we begin and where I end as a single entity, where I know this face is mine, but these glasses are not mine, even though they live on my head, just about every waking moment. So there's a group of cells that give me those abilities. And the left hemisphere is genius at creating order in the external world. But the right hemisphere is looking at the big picture of everything. So it listens to the tone of the voice, the inflection. Is there an energy there? Is there an emotion in that? The facial expression, does that match the tone of the voice? The way someone's holding their body, does that match all the rest of the bigger picture? It doesn't care what the language is that comes out of our mouth. It cares about the rest of the package and says, is this person telling the truth? And one of the things that we've found, and it was certainly true for me when I lost my left hemisphere, was, boy, did I know if somebody was telling me the truth or not, because I didn't understand their language. I wasn't connected to worrying about the details of what they were saying. I was looking at this big package, and was it blending together in a peaceful, natural way, or was it like pieced together in strange ways? And it's like, we become real truth detectors. We all have that inside of ourselves. So every ability we have is because there are cells performing that function. So we can look at ourselves and say, well, what's my brain really good at? And what's my brain maybe not so good at? So looking at ourselves as this collection of possibility, and then which ones am I really exercising, and which ones might I want to exercise more?
So when you started to get back your ability to speak, to, you're pretty much your left brain started to come back and the function started to come back. Did you still have a recollection of what you've learned, or was that still strong? Or, because does it subside when you have a different parts awaken?
Right. So if you consider that the brain is like, 800 billion neurons, that's a lot of cells. And at any moment in time, a lot of the cells in my right hemisphere in normal are working, and a lot of cells in my left hemisphere are working. But the corpus callosum is some 300 million axonal fibers going between the two. And more than 70% of those fibers are inhibitory. And those fibers tend to run from a group of cells that do something very specific, like understand language, to the exact same cells in the same position in the opposite hemisphere. So morphologically, structurally, they look the same. So cells that are going to do motor movement, a motor cell looks very different from a sensory cell. Okay, so they have different shapes and sizes, and they're positioned very specifically in the brain. So as we are living our lives, I may be really good at certain things in my right brain, like following, just naturally looking at facial language. And so over here, but it's really generally hard for me to both really pay attention to the facial language and listen to the verbal language, right? Because I'm putting a dominance on a certain group of cells. So when I lost the left hemisphere and all the inhibition came off of here, I really liked it there. And I liked it there because it was open and expansive, and I lost that group of cells that said, this is where I begin and end. So I was just an energy being made up of these beautiful 50 trillion cells of molecular genius, running around the universe as an energy ball. I thought it was fantastic. I didn't know what a mother was or who my mother was, but I didn't care. Those cells were gone that actually cared that I know that. I didn't know my job. Who cares? I didn't know people. Who cared? I didn't know anything. Who cares? I'm big as the universe. Why would I care?
I love it.
So, and I liked it because all the stress circuitry is in that left hemisphere. So I got to, the price I paid for euphoria and bliss is I lost my stress circuitry. I lost my left intellectual group of cells, and I lost my left emotional cells, which was all the pain from my past. Mm-hmm. So I had none of that going on, and I felt good. My mother would say, child, she always called me child, how can you be so happy? Because here I am, I've completely fallen off the Harvard ladder. I know absolutely nothing about the external world. And I'm over here drooling, and I'm happy. I'm just present. And that's what I gained. So it's always a matter, not focus so much on what people lose, but look at what they've gained. Right. And I lost the stress, and I lost all that. And I gained this incredible sense of euphoria and peace and bliss. And then it was like, okay, well, I do have to become a functional human being in the world if I want to be a functional human being in the world again, which means I have to get the surgery, get the blood clot taken care of, let the doctors do what they need to prepare that so that I could start reconnecting circuits so that I could regain those functions circuit by circuit. And my agreement with myself was that, because now I'm a right brain directing that recovery. And once and we'll talk about the 4 characters in the new book in a second, I'm sure. But once that character came back online in my left brain, who had been the boss before, she wanted to be the boss again. Mm-hmm. And I'm now going, I don't think so. I would really like your skills, and I'd like to be able to use you in the world, and I'd like you to be a part of a brain team. I don't want you to I don't want you to dominate anymore. And she agreed to that. Isn't that lovely? And mm-hmm. And so really I learned how to have a the whole brain function again, and with the intention always based on the values of my right brain, which is, it is our number one job to love one another.
Mm-hmm. Oh my God, yes.
It is our number one job. That's what we're doing here. Everything else, fun, interesting, stressful, exciting, horrible, filled with grief, all of it. But our number one job is to love one another. And that's what the right brain wants to do, is to love us. Love me, all of me, love my life, love those around me, nurture those around me, but still be a left brain, functional, efficient in the external world with that left hemisphere.
I love what you're saying in so many ways. First of all, I just got the chills when you said that, because it's so true. I think your body responds, right? Your body responds to truth, and it's involuntary. And so I'll get the goosebumps sometimes when I hear something. And when you had mentioned, the boss wanting to come back, I think of it as kind of like the ego, or having that aspect.
Exactly.
But it's necessary. It's not that it should be thrown out. It's necessary in this real world. It has a purpose. I mean, just doing what I do with Eastern medicine, and I'm sure you too, you see that every single part of us has a purpose. There's something there for a reason. It's just that when sometimes it gets out of whack, it causes dysfunction, it causes suffering, it causes a lot of different things. And when we're balanced and using all those parts, that's when we feel our best. But it was just so many different things that I thought were so remarkable. So I want you to talk about how we have more power over our emotions than we realize. Because I think that a lot of people going through any trauma or difficult emotions, sometimes it feels like we are bound by that. And you become almost identified with it, but you also feel like you can't really control it or don't have choice over it.
Right. Okay. So I'm going to go to the new book. Can we do that? Am I allowed to do that?
Yeah, absolutely.
So this is my new book. It's called Whole Brain Living: The Anatomy of Choice and the 4 Characters That Drive Our Life. So whole brain living, all of the left brain, all of the right brain, and the anatomy of choice. So that's the power to choose who and how we want to be. And the who are these 4 characters that naturally come up out of the anatomy of our brain. And we all have it. So there were reptiles, and reptiles are pretty much in the present moment, and they're on-off switches. So if I'm a reptile, I'm hungry, I feed, I'm done eating. I see something I want to mate with, I mate with it, I'm done. I've done that. So this is on-off. I see a danger, I run, I'm hopefully safe. Then the way that the mammalian nervous system evolves is by adding new tissue on top of well worked out systems. So for the reptile, the system of the brain stem of the human is well worked out. So we add new tissue on top, and this is emotional tissue. So we have two emotional groups of cells, one in each hemisphere. So that myth that says the right brain is our feeling, emotional brain, and our left brain is our thinking, rational brain, is only partially true. So take those, because the emotional system for human is evenly divided into two. So what happens is that in the human, when we add new tissue on, we get thinking tissue. So now we have two emotional systems, modules of cells, and then two thinking modules of cells in the human. So what we're doing now is we're working the kinks out between what we're feeling and what we're thinking, and what we're thinking and what we're thinking, and what we're feeling and what we're feeling. And this will be the true evolution of humanity, when all four of those character groups are in total communication with one another. Okay. So we have two emotional systems now. From that, so information is streaming in from the external world, and it's going into the present moment, into the present emotion. And the present emotion is the right hemisphere right here, right now. So it is experiential. How much humidity is there in the air? So you're going to have more humidity being by the ocean than I am, right? So what does it feel like? What is it experientially? What does it feel like to have the clothing on your skin? Well, you don't have much. I got a lot. Right? Okay. So, but it's the experience of the present moment. And then the thinking tissue is going to be thinking, because it routes and refines the emotion of the present moment. And the same thing's true of the left hemisphere. The left hemisphere takes the information from the present moment, and instantly those cells are designed to compare it to anything in my past that has ever happened. And is there a reason why I need to push away? Danger, danger, alert, alert. Is that friend or is that foe? Do I approach it? Am I repelled by it? So that's what our emotions of the past are all about. And then our thinking tissue is also projects into the past. I can remember what I had for breakfast today because of those cells. If I don't have those cells or any of these cells, I have no past. All I have is the present moment. And if all I have is this and my present moment is wiped out, prayer happens in the moment, love happens in the moment, connection to something greater than we are happens in the moment. My expansion and ability to feel open and curious is in the present moment. I lose all of that because every ability we have cells that are performing that function. So when we think about these two emotional systems, first of all, information comes in from the external world and it's going into our emotional systems. And then from there, alarm, alarm, alert, alert, or do I feel safe? If I feel safe, the little hippocampus cells in there send that up into the higher thinking, which means we are feeling creatures who think. Feeling creatures who think, which is why emotions are so important in our life. Now we can rationalize and think and change, but no, what is our reality is our emotions, which is why they're so powerful. And our emotions from our past can keep us hooked into a loop of anxiety that says, this doesn't feel safe. That's the part of the brain that's also our stress circuitry, with cortisol being dumped into our systems. And so it can just routinize and routinize and routinize, and we can get caught in that tissue. So the four characters are character one. If you take a human brain like this and you open it up like this is left thinking, character one, left emotion, character two, right emotion, character three, right thinking, character four. And each of those groups of cells results in very specific skill sets. And when you're embodying a skill set, let's say character number one. Character number one is organizing and controlling everything in the external world. Well, I know that part of myself. I call her Helen. She's hell on wheels. She gets it done. She's my character one. She's my A-type personality. She goes to the office. She's going to teach. She's going to get me somewhere on time. She cares about organizing my system so that, yes, I can get here and I can have a Zoom with you at the right time. She's responsible for that. She's a whole character inside of each one of us. We all have all four of these. She's well developed. I lost her completely when I had the stroke. She died that day. I had to breathe life back into her, get those cells functional again to regain her skill sets. And then this character comes on and says, I'm the boss. I was the boss before the stroke and I want to be the boss now. But now these characters 3 and 4 in my right brain are going, but we're a lot happier than you ever are. And we're more peaceful and we're more loving. And we care about different things differently than you do. So we need you and we value you and we love you and we want you as part of the team. But you're not the boss anymore. Now we're a democracy.
Right. Oh my God. You know what comes to mind is when people say I'm a type A personality, I always say, well, that's where you're living right now, but it doesn't necessarily define you. But now, so a type A personality just means that their energy or their focus is way more on Helen.
Yeah, they're just being Helen all the time.
Yeah, so that doesn't mean that that's who they are forever. That's just their personality.
That's who. And the thing about circuits is, and brain cells, is that the more you run a circuit, the stronger that circuit gets, and eventually it begins to run on automatic.
Right.
So if I'm an A-type personality and I'm just happy being an A-type personality, I'm going to say to that person, how are your relationships? Oh, well, they're all fine because, I'm very, I've got their schedule and I keep them on schedule. And it's like, are they afraid of you?
Yeah.
Are they, really when you're all this and you're not this, the whole point is to balance it out.
Yeah.
And that character one, when it takes something personally and it gets wounded, it moves right into that emotional character two. And the little character two takes things personally, and all the energy, boom, goes to that character two. I'm not safe. And nobody appreciates me. Isn't that what the character ones are going to say? Nobody appreciates me. And I show up and I do all these things. And it's like, and I'm not stepping on anybody's toe, or I'm not being controlling, but it'd be great if they would do A, B, and C. But that little character two is the part of us that gets mad at ourselves or unhappy with ourselves or doesn't feel worthy, doesn't feel smart enough or pretty enough or whatever enough. I'm not enough. Period. I'm just not enough. And if I project that at myself, that may be true, or I'm going to project it at you and I'm going to blame you and I'm going to call you names and I'm going to be a bully and I'm going to, that little character two. Character three is right here, right now. And it's emotional, and the emotional is having an experience. So it's feeling. It's really more feeling than emotional. All of those really negative emotions, as well as happy. If I'm happy, it's my little character two, who's happy with the way things are in the external world. It's circumstantial. So if I have a preconceived notion of how I want something and it's not like that, then I'm not going to be happy. And it's my little character too. So everything in the external world has to be just right in order for me to be happy. Well, character three, it's just right here, right now. And it doesn't care about any of that. And it's not about judgment. And it's just glad the sun is shining. Oh my gosh, the sun is shining. Or if it was raining, it's like, well, let's go play in the mud puddles, right? Let's go play. Let's go play. Let's be curious. Let's be innovative and interesting and creative. And it's just not in the judgment of that left brain. And then character four is that thinking of our right hemisphere. And that is the part of ourselves that is connected to all that is. It is our divine self, our authentic self, our holiest self. It's the part of ourself that says, I am so grateful that I even have life. I just
I
have
love
life.
that.
Because I have life, I can have all these other crazy consciousnesses weaving in and out, but I have a life. And in that celebration of just being, just having the gift of eyes to see, or a voice to communicate with, or legs that will allow me to move myself, or whatever it is, whatever, I'm filled with a sense of gratitude. And that is my connection to something that is bigger. I have had life. If I fall off the planet in 5 minutes, it's like, I was here. Wow, what a gift that was. I'm good with whatever is. So we have these four very distinctively different characters. And if I move into my trauma, and trauma is real, and trauma should be felt and should be listened to. And this little character deserves all of our other three characters to love it. So to me, whole brain living is when I say, I move into my character 2, which is hurt and wounded and angry and not happy and pushing away, right? Pushing away. And my character 1 can come in and say, little character 2, are you physically safe? Is there something we need to do to provide you with an environment that is safe? Are you okay physically? Okay. Yes, we're safe physically. Character 4 comes in and says, you are a part of us and we got you. We love you. We hear you. We know you. We know you're going to yell and scream and throw a temper tantrum, and that's because you don't have language to say what you're really feeling. And when you feel that, all the energy in the brain goes boom to that character and it overpowers us, right? Nothing like it. But we're here in your backfield. We got you. And just knowing that I've got a 1 who's going to check everything in my background and make sure I'm safe, and I got a 4 who does open me up to the gratitude of life at all, and recognizing that this is a group of cells that is powerful, 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 and screaming to save my life, but it's still a group of cells. And then the little character 3 says, when you're ready, let's go play. When you're ready, let's go do something fun and interesting that we love to do. And we do crafts, or we do art, or we do sports, or we do a walk in nature, or we do whatever it is we do when we're loving our time in this form on this planet. And just knowing that we can have whole brain living says to me, when that little character 2 gets triggered, when we get stressed, we curl up into a little ball, we get really tight, we get constricted, we get protective, nobody's safe, nothing's good. Just knowing that I've got a 1 looking out for, are we okay physically? And I've got this love back here. I can purposely dissipate my energy knowing that I have these other characters, and I can return to balance because I know each of them so well. And that's why whole brain living to me is the ultimate goal, because I know what my choice is. In this moment, I can stay angry, or I can go do some Helen things. Because Helen's mighty and Helen's good at what she does. And I can distract myself that way. But I've also got my 4, and I can go do 4 things. I can walk out in nature, and I can pray, and I can meditate, and I can feel the love in my heart and feel myself expand. I can use my mind to purposefully do that. Or I can go do something fun and playful with my character 3. We are so much more powerful than anybody ever taught us. And I truly believe whole brain living, and this is an easy way for people to get it. I mean, that's how simple it is. Yeah. And then we communicate with one another, and we hold ourselves. And I'm no longer dependent on someone else to manage my little character 2 when I'm not happy. It's my job. And I've got my 4 right here to do it. I got my 1 right here to do it. And I got my 3 right here to do it.
That's amazing. And I think about so many things came to my mind. Art therapy, why it's so healing. And a lot of times when I work with people, I talk about expressing yourself creatively because some people think that they have to be born to be creative, and it's not true. Everybody, we're all creative. Our creative energy or thought is what gets us out of trouble a lot of times. So creativity doesn't have to be Picasso. It could be so many other ways. It could be dancing. It could
Well,
be
how
movement.
many people, what kind of a brain does it take to look at Picasso and say, yes, that's beautiful art?
Yeah,
I
exactly.
mean, the one
Oh, I
that's
love
looking
that.
at
The
that going,
recognition, right?
what? I mean, they, you know, the character one wants a Rembrandt.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the character three gets Picasso.
Yeah.
You know, the character four is getting probably Dali, things
Mm-hmm.
like that.
Right.
It's
Oh my
like,
God. I
yeah,
like that. I like
it's
that
like totally
analogy.
like, right? It's like, and that's
Yeah.
art. And
Right.
it's like, yeah, to a part of us. It speaks to a part of us, but you're absolutely right. Can I draw? I can draw. Is it going to look like an elephant? Not to my character one, but my character three thinks it's adorable.
Yeah, exactly.
Right. You know, I
Yeah.
mean, it's like, yeah. So you're right. And so many people say, well, I'm not creative. And it's like, well, somebody told you you had to color inside of the lines and what
Right.
color to use. And it's like,
Precisely.
but what if,
Exactly.
yeah, but what if that's not the standard?
Yeah, exactly. That's
And
exactly what happens.
that
Because,
was their standard. That's not your standard.
yeah, and look at kids. I mean, do kids say, oh, I'm not going to pick up that pen because I'm not creative? Every single child wants to create, put, blocks
And they
together,
all
figure,
sing. They're all
they
singers.
dance,
I can
sing. Yeah,
sing. They're
yeah,
all singers.
yeah, it's true. They love the sound of their voice. But look at
Yeah,
that. I mean,
they
and
do.
then at one point, we're taught something or we start to believe something about ourselves, and then we shut that off. But that doesn't mean
Somebody's
that it's not
character
there.
won.
Yeah.
Someone's character won and says, honey, you can't hold a pitch. So,
Yep.
and then it's like, oh, well, I can't. And then I believe that. And then it's like, so I never do. And it's like, no, keep singing in the shower.
Yeah.
And you can
Exactly.
train yourself to hear pitch. It doesn't have to be the end of the world. Learn. I mean, that's the beauty of this human brain, is that these neurons, the bodies are in position, but the interconnectedness of the dendrites is changing, like 1.8 million new synaptic connections per second.
Mm-hmm.
1.8
It's
million. So it's
incredible.
alive
Wow.
there.
It's amazing.
So if I'm going to learn something new, as soon as I've learned that, I have new dendrites in connection, because now I know that and I've learned that. Now, if I don't remember that, if I don't think about that again and reinforce the network, then I'll forget that fact.
Mm-hmm. And
Because
two, sometimes
it'll
changing
dissipate.
that, it takes a lot of energy to change those, to rewire or use different parts. So sometimes that can be discouraging for people. But
Yeah.
once you keep doing it, it starts to become second nature, becomes a habit.
Exactly. Well, that's the way we learn anything.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not going to sit down and play a concert at a
Right.
piano. You're going to sit down and you're going to hit a note. You're going to hear it. You're going to go, huh? And then you're going to hit the one next to it. You're going to go, huh? And somebody's going to teach you how to run a scale. And you're going to go, huh? That's not a concert. And it's like, well, it is a concert. Those are the notes that make up a concert. You just have to get the network together.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, neurons are not in a hurry.
Right.
We are. Neurons
Yeah.
are not in a hurry.
Yep.
So, if we're going to learn something new, we need to be committed to it and dedicated to it. And some things will pick up more quickly, only because we have a foundational network that we're building on. So if your parents were both musicians, you're probably going to already have a network
Mm-hmm.
that is established there for you to develop and build up on top more quickly than somebody who comes from generations of not having that circuitry in their ancestry.
Right. And it's interesting. I also thought about the yin and the yang, the one side, which is very expressive, and it's also very much related to the material world. The other side that's more introspective and experiencing and receiving as well, able to receive. And if I think about, and I see this a lot with corporate America, like people who work long hours and they're in this like go, 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 do, and then get rewarded for that, which also continues the behaviors. They
Right.
get rewarded for being Helen.
Right.
So, so sometimes you have to shift to get into the receptive mode and to
Right.
receive
Right.
and create that balance, the yin and the yang.
Right. Well, and that's very true for, and I actually write about this in the book, is that if you look at the generations over the last 100 years, so you're really at this point looking at the boomer population and the millennial population. And then in between, there's a small wave of Gen Z, Gen X, and then Gen Z after that. So we've got these generations. And because of technology, boomers learned reading, writing, and arithmetic using left brain skills. We went to school, we learned linearly, and so we were taught left brain skills using our left brain tools. The millennials, by that point, they're waking up in bed as infants in the crib with a little automaton bear, Teddy Ruxpin, and he is their first relationship. And so these kids are actually trained to learn mathematics and how to read and how to write using right brain skills to learn left brain skills, tools to live left brain skills. So these kids are actually more right brained. So the value structure of the millennial is more of a right brain community, groups. We like to be in groups. We like to be in groups. Everything is kind of with the group and with our technology. While the boomers are individuals, we've got our ego. My values is the values of the left brain, which is hierarchy. I want to make more money so I can get higher on the ladder. It doesn't matter if it takes 80 hours a week. I'm going to wear those dark circles under my eyes like my badge of honor. And the millennials are going, I don't want that life. Mm-hmm. I want to be happy. Right. And so the boomers are going to say, well, I'm going to work for the same company for 30 years because I'm going to gain all this stuff and this status, and my ego is going to get bigger and bigger, and it's more about me, and I got more money, and my house is bigger, and all that, and I got a boat, and I got all those externals, while the right brain's going, I really want to enjoy the people I'm working with because I like working in community. And I'll do this as long as it feels good. And then I'm going to go find another experience and get a different group and a different skill set. So these, just from a business perspective, we have this incredible division because of the values, the difference in values of our left, more yang, and our right, more yin, parts of who we are.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I mean, I'm fascinating. I'm really fascinated by all of this. It's like mind-boggling. I can't wait to read your book, and it's coming out in May, right?
It comes out May 11th. Yeah. So it's you can actually pre-order it. It's at Amazon. So if you look up me and you look up Whole Brain Living, Jill Bolte Taylor, I truly believe that this is the purpose why I came back from that stroke. The first book was interesting because it was an insight into a stroke and recovery through the eyes of a brain scientist. And it was fascinating through the eyes of a scientist. But this, I really believe, is what have I learned because of that experience? And how do I help other people embrace their power of their whole brain without having to have a stroke?
Oh my God, I love that. And I want to talk also about the brain huddle.
Yeah, the brain huddle. What is that? So the brain huddle is, like any team, they have a huddle, right? They get together. So the brain is these 4 characters and they have a huddle. So I'll give you an example. So at every moment, all 4 of them, when they're well developed and we know who they are, is vying for the microphone. Okay. The little 2 is saying, I want to be unhappy. Character 1, Helen, is saying, I got work to do. Because we always have work to do, right? Little 3, I call mine Pigpen. You know, the Charles Schulz cartoon Peanuts. One of the characters is Pigpen, and Pigpen is always in a dust storm, right? So that's me, Pigpen. Always in a dust storm, always up to something new. You know, the first step in the creative process is chaos. So I totally embrace that. It's like I start, Helen,
the brain dump. the brain
Yeah,
dump.
exactly. So Helen comes in, she organizes it. I do stained glass. Well, I can't do stained glass in a messy place because it's dangerous, right? So Helen goes in after every project and she cleans everything up, puts everything away. And then Pigpen can go in and start fresh. And, within an hour, oh my gosh, things are everywhere. So I'll give you an example of the other day. I was giving an interview and I was with a book group and they had read my Stroke of Insight and they were lovely people. There were like 40 of them online and they were just such lovely people. So I wanted to spend more time with them but our time was up and so it was like, okay, so we're going to wrap this up real quick or we're going to push the pause button and we're going to ease our way out. So my telephone rings while I'm doing a Zoom. My little character 2 instantly goes into, oh no, that's horrible.
We've all been there.
Case scenario. Worse than the dog barking, right? It's the phone. I didn't turn the phone off. And so little 2 comes on and she says, oh my gosh, they're going to think I'm so unprofessional and that was terrible. But Helen looks at it and realizes that there was a text right before it rang from the same person who said, I can't meet in 30 minutes. So let's make a new time. So Helen is thinking, if I take this call, I can have more time with these people. And I thought, big picture, that's going to be the best option.
Right.
So I say, I'm going to explain this later in 2 minutes. Give me 2 minutes. And I take the call and they're going, I'm on a Zoom. And they're all looking at her like, and my little character 2 is going, how unprofessional. And my character 3 is, but these are great people and I want to spend more time with them. And character 4 is going, it's all going to work out just fine. Don't worry about it. Right. So that is, you hear all these voices inside of your head, right? You're feeling all of these things. So I get off the phone and I put it down and I say, okay, now that was a great example of a brain huddle because they all got together and they said, we have to all come together and figure out what is the next best step for us to take as a team to get the best outcome. And they agreed that it was time, it was for me to take that call, as unprofessional as that was, because of what we were going to gain with one another in extending the time. So the brain huddle is really, once you get to know, once you read, there's a chapter on each of the character 1, character 2, character 3, character 4. At the end of each of those chapters, it's going to ask you some questions like, how much time do you spend being this part of yourself? When this part of you does come out, where does it tend to be? For me, it's going to be in the office or it's going to be on my little Zoom setup here. Who in your life, who of your friends or your family like this part of you?
That's a good question.
Who doesn't like this part of you, right? And all that. So there's a group of questions specifically designed to help you identify your own character. And I encourage you to give them all names because they're an identity. They're a group of cells inside of your brain making up this personality. Give it a name. So I talk about Helen all the time. So I'll have friends call, like a friend would call, let's say I hang up from here and I'm still in work mode and I'm Helen and they can tell Helen because Helen has a voice. Right? She's very different from when I'm Pigpen and I'm being playful and lower stress and whatever. And so they recognize Helen on the phone and they'll say, oh, well, hi, Helen. And it's like,
I love it.
And what that means is I am busy and you are bothering me, but I picked up the phone. So what do you need? Right? Yeah. Let's get to the point. Right? So they say, hi, Helen. Call us back later this evening when you're available. Would you please? And I know what that means is, Helen, take the message, have Pigpen call us back, right?
That's great. I love it.
Yeah.
So funny.
And once you start recognizing them in yourself and they start communicating better, and little character 2 is going to say, no, I want my own identity. No, I want to be happy. No. And it's like, the job is not to get rid of character 2. It's to thank little character 2 for being that part of ourselves that was willing to separate itself from God, because character 1, God, or character 3, 4, right hemisphere, right here, right now, that's where God is. And that group of cells was willing to separate itself from the eternal peace and bliss of euphoria. And we owe it our gratitude, because it did that to compare. Have I seen this in the past? Is this danger for me to push away? And that's all it is.
Yeah. That's so interesting. That's amazing. Because, we'll judge that part of ourselves a lot of times
Yeah.
when it comes up. And what's interesting too is that part of ourselves gets triggered more so, it seems, like anything else.
Exactly. Well, it's because it's alarm, alarm, alert, alert compared to the past. Because they both get triggered, but the right here, right now says, okay, there's a car coming right at me. Get out of the way. So I do. But this one says, it's about me, because the ego's in that left brain. So the pain or the threat or the danger or the difference. Okay, so let's talk about racism. Racism right now is going haywire in the world.
Yeah.
We are all wired to be able to be racist. Racism is nothing other than my brain, my character 2, looking out there and saying, that is different from me. Is it safe or is it not safe? And we're being fed by a community that that's not safe. Different from me, skewed to the left hemisphere, which is what our society has been. Different from me is dangerous. So if you have a different color skin, if you have a different religion, if you wear different kinds of clothes, if you look different from me, you behave different from me, you speak a different language from me, you're danger. You're a threat to me. And I, with my little Helen, is going to come in there and protect me from you. All right. So my right brain is equally wired for kindness and curiosity. So I walk into a room of people, I'm probably going to gravitate to someone who has a difference, because I'm going to learn something.
Right.
They're interesting to me. I'm curious about them. I love learning about different people in different cultures, different values. I love that. So I am equally as racist, kind of, but we're in the reverse.
Right.
Because I pursue that which is different from me. So my brain is biologically programmed for different. Recognize what is different. Recognize what is similar. What do I do with that different? Do I gravitate toward it because I'm a whole brain living person and I feel safe and I know that my alarm, I can tame that down so that it, if you got a gun in your hand, I'm probably going to go the other direction.
Right.
But if you have a different clothing on representing a different religious interest, I want to know more about you, because I want to fuel that circuitry. And that's a choice. We can train ourselves, and we have trained ourselves as a society to focus on the difference and push away from it. And to care about the hierarchy and the values of the hierarchy and the me, the individual, the ego, and me and mine and money and the bigger, more, as opposed to the right brain, which we just really just want to love each other.
Yeah, we do. And I think that you mentioned something so true. It's this fear, and we're being fed fear. We don't realize it subliminally. It's like it's being like forced down our throats. You're constantly getting fed that fear. And so that puts you on that left side.
Right.
Number 2.
And the fear is so bad now, it's so severe that it's not even truth.
No, it's not truth.
Not
but most
truth.
of the time, it's not truth.
I
Most
know.
of the time in modern world, fear is not really based in truth.
Right. Yeah. But if I scare you, I can control you. And that character 1 up here, or that little 2, wants to bully, wants to control, wants to blame, wants to manipulate. And then the thinking, values that too, because it wants more. It wants more. It wants more status. It wants more fame. It wants more money. It wants more, 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 more. And it wants it to be up here and you to be down here. So that left brain, it's a fantastic tool. There's a magnificent book called The Master and His Emissary. The Master and His Emissary. And this is a book written by a guy named Ian McGilchrist. And he is a neurologist or psychiatrist, I guess, in the UK. And he has created this magnificent tome of knowledge based on what do we really know about the differences between the right brain and the left brain over 50 or 60 years of research. And right now, everybody's saying, oh, you know, the right brain, left brain, that's just not true. And it's like, I always say, well, which part exactly are you talking about? Because it is true. And now it is true that it is not, well, we're all right brain or we're all left brain. No, they're all going like, you know, dancing molecules constantly. We got all four characters vying for that for that microphone. But very specific groups of cells do perform very specific functions. And if you wipe them out, you just don't have that ability anymore. Right. So it's not like you're always this or you're always that. You're all of this, but how do you create order when it just feels like one big soup inside of your head? And that's why I love this book, because it's not just what's going on in the two different hemispheres, but between our two emotional systems, because they're so different, and our two thinking brains, and they're so different. And when you really get to know those different parts of yourself, you're going to see this has changed your life. You're going to start looking at people who walk into the door and you're going to say, oh yeah, she's in her two right now. She's worried. She needs to, you know, complain, And it's like, okay, what am I going to do in order to help her out of that? Well, I'm going to love her and I'm going to listen. And then I'm going to just inadvertently say, can you help me in the kitchen? Help me do something, you know, let's do dinner together or whatever. And you're going to watch people shift from one character into another character. And this is how the relationships are going to go, because there are four inside of me and there are four inside of you. And so now it's a matter of how do we negotiate our characters? So I'll give you a quick example on that. So I have a friend and she's a school teacher and she goes to school and she's really strong character 1, but she's also got a strong 3, but she's primarily a 1. So she goes to school, she organizes her classroom, she knows where she is in the hierarchy of academia. She's got her students. She's been working so hard to get everything to work, half on Zoom, half the kids are here. She's busy, right? And her husband is a really strong 3 with some 1, but he's mostly a 3. And he's now working from home because of the pandemic. So she can now call him up on the phone and say, honey, I'm coming home. And I'll tell you what, I need 30 minutes of your 1. And then we can be 3s the rest of the evening. And he's going, I know exactly what that means. So he can now, she walks in the door and it's like, honey, we're on the clock. What do you need? And then they can do their one thing together, get that done, and then they can go and play together as their 3s. And the level of clarity that this information can give, boom, 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 we actually understand what's going on right now. And you move into your 2 and I can automatically move into my 1 and say, are we safe? Are we okay? Do we need to do anything? Do you need to go to the emergency room? You know, are we physically okay? Are you bleeding? No, you're okay. It's like, okay. Then my 4 can just come in and wrap my arms around you and say, honey, tell me everything. Tell me everything. I want to hear everything. The good parts twice. Tell me everything. Leave nothing out. And then you get to be heard or you'll crack up because it's like, you're such a goofball, you know? And then we go off into our 3 and we play together. You're going to see it now in every action you have.
I love it. This is
with
amazing.
Every phone call you have, you're going to think to yourself, who am I? I'm in my 3. Yeah, I'm playing with this friend. I'm in my 3. Or my friend, we're whining together. It's like, you know, misery loves miserable company. Put 2 2s together and they commiserate together. But when they fight, forget it, you know, and that's what happens. And there's no resolution when 2 2s fight
That's
There's
true.
never a resolution. Someone has to be willing to step out of the 2 into their 1, their 3, or their 4.
That's so true. I think about Eckhart Tolle too, what he talks about with the pain body. It sounds like the pain body lives in two.
Yes.
And what's interesting too is that, well, they kind of like bring out the two in another person, depending on how much patience that other person has. But what
Right.
I find interesting is that most of us want to resist or kind of reject the two,
Exactly.
maybe because we reject it in ourselves. But
Yeah.
when we embrace it, both in ourselves and in others, it transforms and it changes and it
Yeah.
shifts the whole energy, which
Right.
is amazing. And I think also about the meta meditation, all about loving yourself, loving kindness,
Yep.
loving yourself, sending yourself love, and then
Yep.
sending that love out to others,
Yep.
and how
And
that kind of works.
essentially,
Yeah.
when you do that, you're fueling your character 3,
Mm-hmm.
because that's the emotion of the present moment. So fuel it, use meditation to fuel. I love me. I am love. I'm radiating the love. And then I think about that person who just makes me angry every time I think of it. It's like, no, I'm going to send them love.
Yeah.
Essentially, what you're doing is purposely using your characters 3 and 4 to fuel love into that person's character 2.
Right.
And I mean, I love this material. It's
It's
so easy.
amazing. It
It's
really is.
simple. We all have it.
Yeah. And it brings clarity to something that seems so abstract and so hard to grasp,
Right.
which is our thinking mind and our emotions, to like really actually see it, give it characters. It brings
Exactly.
humor to it as well, which also lightens the load, makes us feel like,
Exactly.
yeah, I love it.
Exactly.
I
And
love it.
and I didn't realize this until I was done with the material, but I was listening to this. I do a lot of audio books, and I was listening to Carl Jung's 4 archetypes: character 1, character 2, character 3, character 4. Right there.
Wow.
Yeah,
Amazing.
it was right there, and it was like, well, that's why these are archetypes.
Mm-hmm.
We all have them.
That's right. That's right. All you have to do is just observe and see
Exactly.
it, and it
Yeah.
makes total sense, and it really works on the yin and yang, which is they've been talking about over 3,000 years ago. So it really, it's kind of the nature of just the
The
basis of
brain.
nature
It's
and the brain.
this is the first modality that I'm familiar with that has truly married neuroanatomy with psychology.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Right.
we know a lot about
Right,
psychology.
because we could look at the physical brain, and then there's the behavior aspect, and
Right.
it's kind of like there's a little bit of a separation
Right.
in a sense. Yeah.
Not anymore.
Oh, I love it.
So I see this as the thoughts and the emotions that create the behaviors. They're the leaves on a tree.
Right.
But if you have unhealthy thoughts and emotions, okay, you can work them up there, because you can change the anatomy. And we know that through mindfulness, I can change my thoughts and actually change the anatomy. But if I go to the anatomy of the brain and I say, these are the cells that are creating those thoughts, and these are the cells that are creating these thoughts, and these are the cells creating these different conflicting emotions, all of a sudden I make a whole lot more sense to myself.
Yeah. Oh my God. I love it. I love it so much. And I can't wait to read this book. I'm probably going to go pre-order it now. And I'm going to have all of the information in the episode notes. I honestly, this has been such an amazing eye opener for me, even as the interviewer, and I'm sure for the listeners in so many different ways. And I thank you so much for coming on. This has been amazing.
Perfect. And send me a link and I'll send it to my people, because it has been amazing and you have been excellent. And I appreciate you and I value you. And I hope after you've read the book and you've had some time to live with it, send me an email.
Oh, I will, for sure. I will.
Send me an email. Give me feedback.
I will. That's a promise.
Perfect.
Thank you so much, Jill.
So much. You're welcome. Thanks.